there's one camera that was very interesting, and this is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. And this is kind of vaporware right now, so it's not available for purchase quite yet, okay? So don't get your hopes up too high. But this is definitely one of the hottest booths to be at. Blackmagic had this huge booth, actually 2 huge booths, and people were wanting to, like, lining up to touch this camera. And what's amazing about this, a couple things. One, they call it a pocket cinema camera, but you better have really big pockets because this thing's huge. Like, I mean, one of the most beautiful things about it, though, is the screen on the back. It's a touch screen, but it's 5 inches, and it's high definition right up on the back there. It looks beautiful. It looks gorgeous. What's missing? They don't have a viewfinder. So if you want to shoot this outdoors in bright light, you might have a problem viewing it from the back. But why is this so special? Well, besides having a micro 4/3 sensor, which is kind of small compared to full size, right? But it's actually much bigger than the previous generation. It has a built-in XLR input, mini XLR input for microphones that can even supply phantom power, okay? But here's the kicker. It has 13 stops of dynamic range, and you can record raw video footage up to 4K 60 frames a second on this little tiny camera. Now, there's a lot of specs that are unknown. Like I asked the guy, so, how long will the battery last? Because he just uses Canon LPE6 batteries, and he didn't know. I asked him, what are the 4 microphones for? Noise canceling or whatever? It goes, I don't know. And so a lot of things were answered with, I don't know. But he at least let me take pictures of the ports and things like that. And you always have to kind of take everything that Blackmagic puts out with a grain of salt, because typically, just like with my Blackmagic web presenter, they release stuff and it's not quite finished. So they release a lot of beta stuff and they fix it with firmware updates in the future. But when they first release, they typically have a lot to be desired, okay? Now, there's a lot of inputs, a lot of outputs on this thing, full HDMI output. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting for creators because the price point, you won't believe how cheap they're selling this for. It's actually $1,300 US for this camera without a lens, obviously. But you can record full RAW direct to CFast cards, and through its USB cable, you can go record direct to SSD cards. And that kind of blows my mind, because that means you remove the friction of downloading all your footage from this whole equation. And so it should be a very fast production camera if you need to go from shooting to editing really fast. Now, in the same vein, like, I'm not sure, okay, this is supposed to be coming out in September, but again, I would take it with a grain of salt. Oh, the other big thing for $1,300, you also get a full copy of DaVinci's Resolve, which Blackmagic owns. It's an editing software, okay? One of my buddies just switched over to it from Premiere, and he loves it. But, I'm not sure if this is the way to go. So, but anyways, that's $300 value. So essentially it's a $1,000 camera. Like, what can they put into a $1,000 camera? It has a dual native ISO, so it should be good in low light, but who knows, right? So we don't really know what they're doing with this camera, and neither do the people on the show floor until it actually gets releases. I'm sure there's a lot of kinks and bugs to work out before they can actually say these are the specs, right? So we'll wait and see on this one. But very interesting, especially for the price point. My goodness, it's kind of ridiculously priced. Now, another really interesting thing that was announced was ProRes RAW, okay? Now, Atomos, they sell these little LCD screens, but they do more than just show you LCD of what's on your camera, right? They actually record onto SSD as well. But they did a joint venture with Apple, and they created something called ProRes RAW. So just like we can shoot stills photography in RAW instead of just JPEG, it gives you more latitude in post-production for fixing the colors and dynamic range as well. Now, there's not a lot of cameras that can actually shoot ProRes RAW because this is a new standard, or hoping to be a new standard that Apple has released. But it's pretty cool that Atomos is really jumping ahead with this. But one of their products that was really cool that I'm very interested in is the Ninja V. It's a 5-inch LCD, but it's super bright. It's 1,000 nit, okay? So it should be viewable outdoors, even in sunlight. Of course, you should probably use a shade, right? But why is this thing so cool? It's got a metal chassis instead of a plastic chassis. It only costs under $700 US. And not just does it help you with your focusing and your waveforms and your exposure, it also records straight to SSD, not in ProRes RAW, but in ProRes. And again, just like the Blackmagic can record straight to ProRes or RAW, this removes one more step. You can take your SSD after you finish recording and then start editing in Final Cut Pro immediately. And the codec is really streamlined, so your computer's not going to work very hard. The downside to using something like this and recording directly to ProRes is that it takes up more memory, and that's why they allow you to record directly to SSDs. Thankfully, the cost of SSDs, even 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte drives, is actually coming down quite substantially compared to even SD cards. So it's not unreasonable to record with these, and you will save time in the post-production, okay? Now, pretty cool. I am keeping my eye on this, and you can pre-order it already from B&H. It's not shipping yet, and again, but really tiny form factor, really good, strong build, and it's super light. And so they're really going for, and why would I be interested in this? Well, I'm still shooting on all my Nikon cameras. These are all Nikon cameras that I'm using right now. And what I hate, I love the quality. Like, these look beautiful. Like, I love the quality of the glass that I have and the look that I can achieve with these. But I hate that they have a 10-minute record limit when I'm shooting at 60p, okay? Like, I'm not even shooting at 4K. My computer can't even handle 4K. But realistically, if I wanted to shoot more than 10 minutes, I can't at 60p. And so when I'm using something like this Atomos Ninja, I could record as long as I've got hard drive space. And they claim a larger battery should run for about 2 to 3 hours. And so that's pretty awesome. And so I could record a lot longer directly to ProRes, start editing, and boom, I'm a happy man. And something that I'm going to be getting for certain, I think, and that is the DJI Ronin S. Now, this thing was announced at CES, and DJI has been known for their drones. They're known for their bigger, two-handed gimbals. But this is the first time they've made a single-handle gimbal. And I have my Zhiyun crane, and I love that thing, but it's not perfect. It's starting to seems to be off kilter a little bit. And I find that it doesn't allow me to control the movements as much as I'd want to, okay? And so when I handled this big, the Ronin S, I was really impressed. One, they claim that it uses the same algorithms and technology that they put in their Ronin 2, which is their big boy, right? They're kind of their flagship for the handheld stuff, okay? Now, when I held it, it actually was really smoother than my Zhiyun crane. It seems to have a smarter algorithm in there. I did notice that it was heavier than the Zhiyun crane, but that could be because it had a follow focus and a bigger lens on it than the one that I was actually using, okay? Now, the one thing that really interested me is that they're building this into their ecosystem. And I already said it, but that's that follow focus. And I'm totally interested in that because my Nikons have horrible, pretty much non-existent autofocus when they're in video mode. So to have the ability to keep your camera on a gimbal, yet control the focus manually as a solo shooter, that is incredible to me. And I was so impressed with how well the follow focus felt and worked. I even tried like other brands that cost thousands of dollars just for a follow focus, like Red Rock Micro. And I didn't like the way that they move. There's a lot of play in the way that you control the follow focus, whereas the DJI, at least at these ones that were on the show floor, which were prototypes, they felt really good. Now, this is going to be released next month. There was no firm price, but they said it'd be probably under $1,000 US, which is good. And because you can grow into a follow focus, I am so looking forward to be able to grow the system with me. Now, I did find that it was, they haven't really confirmed materials, so it might be lighter or heavier than what I felt. But it was really, really high quality from what I felt. I hope that what I remember it to be becomes the actual unit, because that will be just unreal and it'll make everybody else want to catch up to these guys. And very impressive. You'll notice that the way it's designed, the gimbal doesn't get in the way of the LCD screen, which is really nice. There's a trigger on the front instead of the back of joystick button that allows you to control whether it follows you or it doesn't follow you. It just sticks to the front, or it actually whips around for a selfie. You can also hit that mode button that's showing up right now, and that will allow you to, when you press and hold, to whip pan it. So as you turn, it'll really quickly follow your movements. And so that is not possible with my Zhiyun crane either. And so whenever you go, whoom, it takes a long time for it to slowly pan towards you. So there should be a lot of creative things that we could do with this particular gimbal that we can't currently. So I loved that one as well.